Baptist podcast. We gather around to talk theology, politics, and the sweet banjo sound. Kevin Thompson leads the way, teacher and preacher too. With a men's quartet, the harmonies ring true. Gather around the mic, let's find our way, singing praises, strumming banjo strings all day. Amputated Baptist podcast, where we all belong. Join the harmony, let it carry us along. With a passion for faith and a banjo by our side, we don't deep, we don't hide, we take it all in stride. From parables to politics, every topic on the table, let's harmonize together, let's make it stable. In the chord progressions we find our peace, singing praises, strumming banjo strings all day. Amputated Baptist podcast, where we all belong. Join the harmony, let it carry us along.
Theology, politics, and a little bit of banjo. You're listening to the Amputated Baptist podcast. And now, here is your host, the Amputated Baptist himself, Kevin Thompson.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. This is a special edition. It's the first time I've ever done this, and maybe we'll make it a tradition. It's our Festivus episode, a Festivus for the rest of us. If you're familiar with Seinfeld, you know what I'm talking about. So it's time to grab that aluminum pole from the crawl space. It's time to do our feats of strength, and most importantly, it's time to make things right. It's time to make some complaints. And so I'm going to list a few complaints I have around this time. Number one on the list. Mary, did you know? Well, yes, she knew. So let's end the debate. No. Back up. Okay. We're talking about the Mark Lowry song, Mary, Did You Know? It's become incredibly popular. And with that popularity has come its fair share of criticism. Because anytime any Christian does anything, we start getting attacked. And I'm not just talking about from the secularists or the atheists. So I'm talking about fellow Christians. That's, if anything, is our tradition, is attacking one another. And so the assumption is that yes, Mary did know. Mary was visited by angels, she was visited by wise men, she was visited by shepherds, and she knew who Jesus would be. And so therefore we don't have to speculate, and therefore the song is a waste of time, right? Well, no, we don't know exactly what Mary did know. If we just look at the biblical account, we don't have a lot of details, other than this child would be the Messiah. And yes, maybe we can even learn from that child was God incarnate himself. But when you look at Lowry's song, there's a lot in here. There's some specifics in here about, Jesus walking on water, Jesus healing the blind, healing the deaf, and so on. Calming the storm with his hand. I don't see those accounts given by the angels, but given by the wise men, given by the shepherds or anybody, or the angels. I don't see that anywhere. And so here's the thing. For you guys who want to get all high and mighty with this, you don't know what Mary knew. I'm feeling that some of you are going to be like, up in heaven someday, and you're going to treat Mary like she's at the Watergate hearings. Mary, what did you know, and when did you know it? Just enjoy the song. It's a nice little song. Sure, it involves a little bit of hyperbole, maybe some exaggeration, but it's a nice song, and you do kind of wonder, what did Mary know? She's holding this child in her hands, even though she has heard from the angels and the shepherds, at least at that point, and later on the wise men. It is kind of curious. What did she know? So you know what? Just enjoy the song. Just enjoy it. We don't need to argue about it or fight about it. Complaint number two. Speaking of things we fight about, let's keep the Christ in Christmas. Okay, well, I agree with that. But if we're just talking about Xmas, then you don't know what you're talking about. There's a long tradition in church history of substituting the name for Christ with the letter X. Why? Because it comes from the word Christos in Greek. And that's just been a long-standing tradition. In the word Christos, the first letter of the Greek word is transliterated into our alphabet as an X. And that's all that means. There's a rich tradition of that. So we don't need to get up in arms about that and fight and scream at that's really taking the Christ out of Christmas. I remember hearing that many times growing up. But even, as a trusted scholar, at least in my book, R.C. Sproul says, there's a long and sacred history of the use of X to symbolize the name of Christ, and from its origin, it has meant no disrespect. So no, it's not an atheist plot or a secularist conspiracy to get people to step away from Christ. So that's complaint number 2. Let's roll right into complaint number 3. The war on Christmas. Oh man, I've heard about this for years now. If the war on Christmas just means we should say Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays, oh, good night. Why? Why is this a big deal? First, let's look at it semantically. There's more than just one holiday that we're talking about. At the very least, we're talking about Christmas and New Year. So to say holidays is not offensive. It's actually somewhat accurate. And if you want to throw in, things like the Jewish tradition of Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or all these other things that happen around the same time, you know what? I'm not offended if someone says Happy Holidays. You know what I tell them? Thank you. And by the way, when's the last time someone attacked you for saying Merry Christmas? I've never been attacked for saying Merry Christmas. I read one report, or I think it's a status on X or Twitter or whatever. It said, now that Donald Trump has been elected, we can say Merry Christmas again. I've never stopped saying Merry Christmas. I've never had one person in my entire life get offended when I say Merry Christmas to them. I've seen many people get offended when you say Happy Holidays to them. So maybe some of our fellow Christians are just a little thin-skinned. Or, dare I say, for the season, are they a snowflake? Maybe. I don't know. But if your war on Christmas means you have the right to put up a tree, a Christmas tree, call it a Christmas tree, not a holiday tree, and say Merry Christmas, then, man, I think you're missing the whole idea of Christmas, because Christmas is about Christ. It's not about Santa, it's not about Rudolph, it's not about trees, it's not about the words that we use. It's a day that we celebrate Christ and his birth and the redemption that came with that birth. So, if that's all you mean about that, I don't have time. I don't have time for that. So, yeah, whatever. Okay? I'm not upset about all those things. So, we move on to, I've lost track. I think we're on, number 4 now. And these are, I think we're going beyond just Christmas here. Jesus isn't white. When I learned that, it shook my faith. Because I don't know how many Christian sermons I've heard. I don't know how many sermons I've heard in my life. I've grown up in the church and gone to church many, many, many times. Heard probably thousands of sermons. And each one always ended with, and don't forget that Jesus is white. We'll come to find out he's Middle Eastern. He's not white. He's darker than white. Okay, you know what? That's never been a fundamental part of the faith. And I don't know anyone who's really tried to make that a big deal. Where we get that is the little pictures we have in little storybook Bibles and some of the classic portraits of Jesus, which is basically just, European, how Europeans looked in the Middle Ages when these things were made. And you know what? Jesus wasn't white. That's not the flex you think it is. By the way, Jesus also wasn't a illegal immigrant, socialist, hippie, whatever that you want to make him out to be either. He's Jesus. He transcends all of us. And so, yeah, I get it. Jesus wasn't white. I don't ever remember really thinking about it or really contemplating it too much. But Jesus wasn't white. I give it to you, okay? Jesus wasn't white. I admit it. Okay, let's move on. Next. Are you for banning books? Banning books like Nazis. Okay, what we mean by banning books these days are deciding what books should be in a school library and what books shouldn't. That's what we're talking about. I don't believe this isn't like Nazi Germany where you can't actually buy these, where you go to jail for reading these things. It's not like even what the Catholic Church did back in the Reformation days. It's simply saying this book shouldn't be in a library. We all make that decision. We're all for banning books if that's our definition. Because there's no one who thinks that we should have a copy of Playboy in the local school library. There's no one who thinks that we should have racist, anti-Semitic books being put for children to read. No. If you can buy this book on Amazon, it's not a banned book. And not every book belongs in a public school library, especially an elementary school library. We're all for banning books. We're all for not allowing some books to be in that library. Now, I'm for that. I'm against banning a book, as in you can't buy it, you can't write it, you can't publish it, you can't mass produce it. I'm not for any of that. But there are some books that I love and enjoy from a Christian perspective that I don't think should be in an elementary school library. And I'm okay with that. You're okay with that. We're all okay with that. So let's just, Now, the question is, what books should we ban? That's the question. And I do disagree with some of the examples I've heard, like biographies of Roberto Clemente and others, that I don't know why anyone would ban that from a school library. Books about slavery, things like that. I'm all for putting those books in the library. Absolutely. Let's do it. But let's think about these things, okay? Let's not just jump on our high horse, like I've said many times before here. Okay, so banned books. And finally, we're talking about libraries, we're talking about schools. Well, they didn't teach me that in school. Oh, I get as a teacher, I get real tired of that. You don't know, let's face it, a lot of you don't even know what you learned in school because you didn't learn it. You were talking. You were too busy gossiping with your friends or trying to flirt with your crush or whatever. Just because we teach it doesn't mean you learn it. Now, some of that's on us. Okay? But some of that's on you too. And I don't think, there's not too many people I know, just from, again, my experience as a teacher, just because I teach something and just because I say, hey folks, this is going to be important when you get out in the real world, when you graduate high school, they're not going to get out their pens and papers. Okay, Mr. Thompson, please, I really want to learn this. Let's get this down. That's, you've never been in the classroom if that's what you think is going to happen. Because when you start teaching, well, what about taxes? Well, how popular has math class been? I don't know. It's never been popular. It's not popular now. It's not popular when I was a kid. Just because you teach it, and just because we say it's important, doesn't mean people are going to learn it. And listen, when it comes to taxes, listen, what I would have learned back in 1996 when I graduated high school, wow, that's old, is not even applicable now. Things change. Listen, what we do teach you is how to learn. We teach you how to read. We teach you how to do math. That and a copy of, the latest tax software, you're set, dude, okay? So some of these things, we can't teach you everything you need to know. It's impossible. Some things are parent issues, some things you should be learning at home, and some things you just need to learn on your own. We want to teach you not just what to know, we want to teach you how to know it. We want to teach you not just things, but thoughts. We want to teach you how to think through things and learn for yourself. Okay, well, this has been a quick episode, but that's all the time I've got right now. So those are just some of my things I just want to get off my chest. So, happy Festivus for the rest of us. Join us back next week. We'll actually have an actual real episode next time. So until then, have a good rest of your week. Check out amputatedbaptist.com. Check out our store, get some merch, and hey, get some Dubby energy drinks in you. You might need it for this holiday season. So don't forget to use the word Amputated Baptist and get a 10% discount on that. So, okay. Have a great Festivus, and I'll say Merry Christmas.
Singing praises, strumming banjo strings all day. Amputated Baptist Podcast, where we all belong. Join the harmony, let it carry us along.